it again in case we have some newcomers here. This is a wonderful, potent hour we spend together during Poetry Month, as well as other times of the year, where we feature a single poem. We start with a meditation offered by one of our fantastic collaborators to settle us in together. And then we listen to another fabulous collaborator speak of a poem. We do some writing and we do some sharing. And today we have Troy Bronsink from The Hive, who many of you have met before, and we'll share out afterwards how do you find out more about The Hive and their fantastic programs. And we're thrilled to welcome back Manuel Iris to talk about James Wright's poem, A Blessing. Manuel has a new book out. We're so excited about it. So we will share information with you about how you get your hands on this gorgeous piece of writing. And then at the end, after we do our poem sharing, we're going to get a glimpse into a tiny little snippet of what the wonderful Mercantile Library looks like here in Cincinnati, Ohio, where we were going to have our in-person gathering before the pandemic made this our room, luckily. And she and Manuel are just going to share with you a little bit about a very special Poet Laureate program here in Cincinnati. And then we'll read the poem and we'll be done. One more thing. When it comes to the part where you're raising your hand to share a poem, you do not have to share if you don't want to, but if you are ready, write your name in the chat, maybe in caps. I would like to read. So then Manuel can find them. And you also can raise your hand in the reaction button, which just is a raise the hand. If you can't find the raise the hand, maybe do some other icon. That helps Ro unmute you. Finally, before I turn it quickly over to Troy for the meditation, thanks to On Being, we do have Savvy with us providing closed captions. So if you are interested in having your experience fortified through closed caption, you just go to the bottom and you click on live transcript, and that will be a real-time transcription of what we're hearing. Without any further ado, I turn it over to Troy.
Thanks, Stacy. Good to see y'all. So the poem we'll spend some time with today, I can't wait to see what Manuel does with it, what we do with it. Where it strikes me, what we've looked at this week, as I've looked at it this week, is the vulnerable work of leaping into the world and learning from it and living through it. And there's a couple ways I'd like to invite us to consider that as a practice. Sometimes we do mindfulness work as a sense of coming ashore to my own life. John O'Donohue has this great vision of the fact that we live in a lighthouse, but we spend our whole life pulled up to one window. And so what is it like to pull back and listen to our life from all perspectives? What keeps us from that a lot of times is self-illusion or self-delusion, stories we tell about ourselves. And in my experience, that happens with you and me too. That happens with me and the tree in my backyard. That happens with me and my dog. There are delusions I have about you, projections we often call them. And they're interrupting forces for me to actually enter into the energetic quality of your life or of the other things around us and what they're teaching us. So maybe you've used a mindfulness practice to kind of, Howard Thurman describes it as the fluid area of consent or the nerve center of consent, to soften. And I'd ask you in the few minutes we have together and in the practice ahead to consider, how do I soften not just to what's arising in me, but to what is arising in another. A trick I use for this sometimes, I stumbled into it. I don't know if I've shared it in this group before, but my dog Hugo, I didn't grow up a dog person, But my dog Hugo is a lot of fun for my kids, and at first was kind of in my mind kind of a nuisance. I can never get grass to grow where he runs. And one day I was listening to some lectures by Thomas Merton, and I thought, what else would Thomas Merton be reincarnated as than a family dog? Just part of our life, loving life. And that little bit of trick in allowing myself to get into Hugo's experience, to give it the same validity of my own experience, has a softening, powerful quality. Meister Eckhart has this phrase where he says, when I was the sky and the moon and the rivers, when I was every hoof, foot, wing, no one asked me, what is your purpose? Because there's nothing I could not love. So the power of allowing ourselves to drop into the big it, and the experiences of others, to get into the soil of the world around us as much as the soil of our life, to see our life as part of that. So I want to invite us into a practice of that for a moment here. First, just for goodness sakes, enjoy this body of yours. Like, just notice that you showed up to do this in a body. This isn't a bunch of brains or ideas. This is our body. So just look at your body for a minute, your hands, your jeans. I've been walking for a bit and might smell differently than I would have if I had prepared to meet you all in person. Whatever your body is doing, just be there with it for a moment. And just take a big exhale. And if it's helpful to close your eyes, do that for a minute. Or soften your gaze. Just notice the experience you're having. Letting yourself move past the stories and the delusions, just to be present. Your life has given you so much. And then I want you to consider another living thing. It might be easier for you to think of someone you care about, a human. Just picture their face. Or maybe you want to move into a more adventuresome place. The irises out in the front yard that are just about to wilt if we have another day of sun like this. Or maybe it's your cat or your dog. What's Mary Oliver say? It could be a weed in a vacant lot. Just give yourselves a moment to drop into to one of those fellow beings. And rather than jumping to projection into easy metaphors and symbolism, just let it tell you its story. Give it some regard and preciousness. Think of its body and what its body's been telling it. Take a risk in letting it love you, and maybe even living into some kind of I love you too, whatever that might mean. And then as we begin to open back up to the room, don't do it quite yet. In your mind's eye, or maybe with your very body, you want to bow to that thing, to that other. Thing seems too neutral a word, to the otherness of that flower or dog or loved one or what have you. What is it like to see the, as they would say, ashe, ashe, or what's the holy ground that is that thing's very life? And almost to tiptoe out like you're leaving an ashram, tiptoe out. And then slowly open your eyes to this room, but with without the need to do some radical transitions. See if you can hold that same quality with you as we dive into these words and this practice together. I'm going to pass it to Manuel now. There we go.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you. And now that we are silenced on the inside, we can receive the gift. I had a friend that taught me that poetry is a lot like praying. That you have to give yourself the space to receive. Like writing a poem is what he said. You have to make silence, and then you receive the gift, and then you leave testimony, and the testimony is the poem itself. And something like that happens when we read a poem. And this poem in particular, I'm going to read it first, is about precisely receiving the gift. And in this case, is the realization that you already had the gift all along, that the gift was there. A Blessing by James Wright. Just off the highway to Rochester, Minnesota, twilight bounds softly forth on the grass, and the eyes of those two Indian ponies darken with kindness. They have come gladly out of the willows to welcome my friend and me. We step over the barbed wire into the pasture where they have been grazing all day, alone. They ripple tensely. They can hardly contain their happiness that we have come. They bow shyly. They bow shyly as wet swans. They love each other. There is no loneliness like theirs. At home once more, they begin munching the young turfs of spring in the darkness. I would like to hold the slender one in my arms, for she has walked over to me and nuzzled my left hand. She's black and white. Her mane falls wild on her forehead, and the light breeze moves me to caress her long ear that is delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. Suddenly, I realize that if I step out of my body, I would break into blossom. Those two last lines are the epiphany of the poem. And I believe that every poem should have an epiphany somewhere. This poem is called A Blessing. And the religious tone of the poem is very evident. We must not forget that the word religion itself comes from the Latin religare, which means reconnect, relink. And that is exactly what is happening in this poem. In this poem, we have these 4 individuals, these 2 ponies, the speaker of the poem and his friend. And they are happy to see each other. They are happy to encounter. But it's a happiness that goes beyond happiness. It's joy. They are enjoying. Their souls are connecting with that experience in that moment. And they are, and this is important, they are not asking for the meaning of what is happening. They are just enjoying what is happening because it's happening in that moment. And the realization, the mindfulness, the awareness of what that encounter entails, of that joy, is the blessing itself. Even though we see the blessing, even though the poem is called The Blessing, there is no one giving blessings to anyone. There is no priest, there is no saint, there is no opening in the sky or in the clouds. There is no voice of God talking from somewhere. There is nobody having an out of the body mystical experience. All of this is happening inside the body because they are completely aware of the beauty of the moment. There is this moment in the poem where she says, I would like to hold this slender one in my arms, for she has walked over me and nuzzled my left hand. She's black and white, her mane falls while on her forehead. That description is stopping in that moment. First on touch, she touched me. And then we go to describe how she looks, how she is. That is contemplation. Contemplation as a spiritual practice. Contemplate the moment does not mean to be away from what we contemplate. It's exactly the opposite. Contemplation is a way to go into whatever we are contemplating. Contemplation is not to be detached from reality, but to be fully immersed in it, realizing that you are part of it. In this beautiful communion between the natural and the human, between these 2 ponies. And it is also very important that this is a communion that has to do with nature, with this purity of this love and emotions. There is no way that they're going to share words, but language in this case is not necessary. It is necessary for the poet to communicate with us, but it is not necessary for the protagonist of this beautiful moment to communicate among them. And the blessing is precisely the not need for language. Blessing in this moment is the full awareness, and the speaker is aware of the beauty of the moment. And the ponies are aware of the beauty of the moment. And everybody is aware that the others are also. And that is the blessing. This is not a blessing that came from the outside. The blessing in this poem is the realization of what they already have. This poem is not about getting a blessing when there was none. This poem is about unveiling the blessing below what is common. These are not 2 extraordinary unicorns. These are the 2 ponies that they already know. This is not a friend that came back from the death. This is his friend that he already had. And this encounter is beautiful, but it's not supernatural. This is not an encounter full of marvels and angels. This is an encounter based on love, beauty, and serenity. And the blessing is to realize that the blessing has been there all along. The blessing in this poem is the awareness And because the blessing comes from the inside, that beautiful image at the end make us sure that the blessing is not coming from the outside. He does not say, and I realized that there were falling flowers from the sky. No, he says, I realize, and then that verb, the blessing is a realization, not a gift. It's a realization. Suddenly I realized that if I stepped out of my body, I would break into blossom, because he is already bloomed in the inside. And the pony is already bloomed in the inside, and everything is already flowering in the inside. And the realization of that is the blessing. Blessing in this case is the awareness of the beauty that is already happening. This poem is not to call for blessings. This poem is to call for the awareness and the realization that we have been blessed already. And if we pay attention, those two ponies also exist in our life. It's maybe that friend that we see in the hallway. It's maybe those flowers that we have in our non-fancy garden. It is maybe the smile of that person. Those blessings are there. In the most non-holy places. I love how this poem that has this title called A Blessing, it starts with, just off the highway to Rochester, Minnesota. It has to be the most common place. We have to remember that when Thomas Merton had his second mystical experience was in the least holy of places. It was in the business district of Louisville, Kentucky. That place does not invite prayer, guys. But that was the place. And I think that something like this is happening in this poem. There is this beautiful realization, and a realization that also if we think about the sound of the poem, is based on slowness. This is not a fast poem. This is a poem that invites us to slow down in the same way that he slowed down and looked at the horses and described them in detail. Contemplation. Contemplation as a form of awareness, and awareness as a form of blessing. I think that this poem is an invitation to assume that attitude and to keep with ourselves and to keep with our hearts the knowledge and the certainty that we shouldn't look for the blessings outside, because they are not outside. They're blooming from the inside out. And that's all I'm going to say about the poem. Thank you.
So Manuel, do you have an idea about a prompt for us?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. I have a prompt. Precisely because I think that this poem is talking about something that is hidden on plain sight. We're going to start precisely with that expression, our poem. I'm going to give you the beginning and the end of the poem. And then you will tell me what is your blessing. But the first verse is, it was hidden on plain sight. And open a colon. And you're going to make, you're going to describe one thing in detail, or you're going to make a list of things if you want to make a list. And your last verse, after you do all of that, will be, it was a blessing. So it will be something like, it was hidden on plain sight on the flower pot in its cracks. on etc., etc., etc. It was a blessing. For this author, the blessing was in this encounter with the horses. But I don't know where is yours. I would have never written about encounters with horses. I don't feel very comfortable around horses. But where is yours? I would like to know that about you too.
All right, friends, that was gorgeous. Both Troy and Manuel. It was just, I can't even believe how much it's like we're at 28 minutes. That was an extraordinary amount of beauty. Thank you.
Did I take that long? Oh,
No, all together, all that beauty,
okay.
all that beauty
Thank you.
in not even a half an hour. So I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes and I'll chime when we're getting close, and we'll come back and we'll hear what we make out of our prompt.
Beautiful.
We have another couple minutes before we'll return to the room together. I'll chime when we get there. Bring yourself back. I love that image that Troy gifted us of the bow and the quiet backing away. So perhaps that's what you will be doing as you back away from your poem. Manuel, we'll turn it back over to you. And just a reminder to everyone, 2 steps if possible. Write your name in the chat or your I would like to read. And if you can, go to the reactions and raise your hand also so Ro can unmute you. If only one of those things works, then we'll make it work. So we will, it looks like we have Hadley. Oh, wow, we got one in the chat too. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Manuel.
Yes. So now we want to hear from you guys. We may not have time to have everybody read out loud their poems. So please write your name in the chat saying I would like to read, and we can start with you in that order. Lila Bertalan. I'm butchering your name. I'm very sure that I'm butchering your name.
No, that was pretty close actually. I don't think mine is that good, but this is what I came up with.
Here we go.
Should I read it?
Yes.
All right. A meat grinder is just a pair of jaws you borrow when you're too old to chew things. Sitting in a cupboard hidden in plain sight, it waited for the moment to shine. It resolved a domestic dispute between my love of duck hearts and my father's condition. A condo-minded person would have eliminated it a long, long time before the need arose. Sometimes clutter is a blessing. I wonder what treasure might help me arrange my perfect ending, because as useful as a meat grinder might be, old age is still an option, not a duty.
Thank you. Sometimes a clutter is a blessing. How many blessings we oversee almost every day. Thank you. Hadley, you wanna read us your poem?
Yeah.
Thank you.
at the ocean, sorry, I can't even read what I wrote. Okay, as the ocean knife, at the ocean's knife edge, a violet wing half buried in the sand, one wing flapping, the other suction to its wet. The butterfly, I heard the cry of its wings. I scooped up sand and butterfly, sifted the sand between my fingers until all that remained was a delicate caress, drying. I open my, sorry, having a hard time today. Drying, my hands cut like a prayer. I opened my hands to the sky and a blessing winged into the sun.
Beautiful. So the blessing came out of you to the sky. That is an unusual description of a blessing, and I think it's a poetic find. Thank you, Hadley. Wade, can we hear from you?
It was hidden in plain sight, I guess. The crows, the squirrels, the myriad birds all sharing their homes with me. This year in the house, this year of walking hundreds of miles through their homes. They've grown accustomed to my presence, not tame, but something else, something new and soon gone. Now the children's voices return, the lights dim as old, obligation takes hold once again. It was many things at once. It was a blessing.
Thank you, Wade. Thank you. It is about being aware, right? It happens also with writing, I think, is the same. We are constantly looking for a subject to write about. And really, life is a writing prompt. If we just pay attention to what is surrounding us, we will never run out of things to write about. It is like that. Emily, could we hear from you?
Yeah, I love that. It was the condo-minded person line. That's gonna stick with me. That earlier poem. It was hidden in plain sight. It was cat shit, awaiting my footsteps as I rose last from slumber. It was balled up, striped leggings, starting to scent in a closet, and my uncurling it and soaking it in the baptismal water of the laundry machine. It was the forgetting to sign up for the sanity-providing poetry moment and getting snuck in the back door at the last minute. It was the new adult acne peppering my cheeks, blemishes of youth still here, and a new ritual of caressing the skin. It was "I hate math" screamed loud enough for all of Virginia to hear, and being able to wait for a better moment. It was a small voice, "Mom," when I still have 60 unread emails and 3 other things I can't remember what they are to do, asking for snuggles. It was garden beds I don't know much about, tangling amongst each other and getting messier and sheltering a nest. It was a couch cushion with a black marker smiley face greeting me, even when I frowned deeply. It was a series of stickers shouting, "Teach tolerance," on the toilet, on the stool, on the sink, on the wall, on the mirror, a reminder while breathing by oneself in the bathroom. It was a blessing.
Thank you, Emily. I think also that sense of humor is rare in poetry, and your poem made me giggle more than what I muted myself because I was giggling too much. Thank you. Those the sticker parts is funny. Thank you, and that is also important. I think that when we think about joy and we think about blessings, laughing is also part of it. Sometimes we think about spirituality and meditation in this very serious way, you know, like everything has to be in this Buddha-like demeanor, and finding humor is also part of a connection with transcendence, I believe. Thank you for that poem. Lola, would you like to read us your work?
It was hidden in plain sight. You here right now. I can't believe you're here now. Not in the church, not when I close my eyes to really listen, but even now. Am I good enough for you? Am I holy enough for you? I want to be that holy woman you call me to become. Can you wait till I have that headscarf on my head and live to serve people and have children and am pure and elegant and stop drinking altogether and give myself completely to you? Can you see me and love me then? No, you love me now. You love my bloated tummy and puffy hay fever eye. You love my uncertainty, my doubts, my questions. You love me. You love me. You love us. You love each one. You are hidden in plain sight, but the realization of you is so real. You are vital, immense, too much to consider. Can we really be friends? Can I really be your daughter, your beloved? In the cold light of day, I choose to believe. May my life look like this choice. It is a blessing.
Thank you, Lola. Thank you. That's a beautiful piece. Beautiful piece. I think I am reading the chat and you guys are fun. I think that for the sake of time, we're gonna end here this part of the sharing. Of course, that we can keep sharing our poems through email and etc. But now there is this message that our dear Amy has for all of us about the Poet Laureate program in the city of Cincinnati. And before we go there, I have to say thank you. Thank you to all of you, not only for your poems, but for the silence before them and for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for that beautiful, beautiful work. And I agree, it is sanity making. It's not entirely the line, excuse me. Sorry, library is usually not this noisy. I was upstairs on the 12th story, and then when we started writing, I came down to the main reading room to show you all the Mercantile Library, where, as Stacy mentioned at the beginning, we would have been a little over a year ago gathering, but you know, now we're gathering from all over the country and all over the world. So, but okay, thank you, Eddie. It's really loud right here. My name is Amy Hunter. I'm the Programs and Marketing Manager at the Mercantile Library in Cincinnati, Ohio. And in 2016, the city of Cincinnati inaugurated its first Poet Laureate for the city. Her name is Pauletta Hansel. She held that post for 2 years, and the library hosted her induction And we've been the de facto home for the Poet Laureate of Cincinnati since then. And in 2018, Manuel Iris became our second Poet Laureate. And thanks to the pandemic, he has had an extra year plus of being our Poet Laureate. And in the last year or so, we've been in conversation and finally came to a conclusion. The Mercantile Library is now the official home of the Cincinnati Poet Laureate program and the Poet Laureate. The city is still partnering with us, but we're taking over sort of managing it. The new Poet Laureate, once chosen, will be the physical and likely virtual home for programming and all sorts of work that the new Poet Laureate is going to do. We'll be announcing a call for submissions in the next few days, and it's going to be really extraordinary. And even if you're not in the city, I welcome you to kind of follow along the process. We have a 10-person selection committee. Manuel is on it. He's been an extraordinary artist in bringing the community together and exposing all of us to his beautiful words and including other people's words. He's held open poetry nights and all sorts of amazing things. So you guys are actually the first ones to hear it. We haven't made it public yet. And since we had this opportunity with Manuel, I wanted to share it with all of you first. Manuel, is there anything I'm missing?
Yes, I mean, nothing that you're missing, just something that I would like to add. The Cincinnati Poet Laureate position has been from the beginning, from the very start, a community building position. It is not just a poet that is interested in reading its own poems or talking all the time about poetry. It is also about helping the city to bring its many communities together. This is a community building position. This is a matter of love, not only for words, not only for poetry, but for what poetry and words do, which is bringing people together. Especially, I think, given the political times that we're still living in the country, and the social turmoil that we continue to see, I believe that the Poet Laureate of the city of Cincinnati has the responsibility of being some sort of an agent of healing and change. And that is what we are looking forward to keep doing. All of the now emeritus Poet Laureates like myself and the next Poet Laureate of the city. We are very happy that now is the Mercantile Library and not an office in the government. Because if the Mercantile Library has the Poet Laureate program, that means that the Poet Laureate program is not gonna disappear depending of who is in power. This makes the Poet Laureate program solid for the foreseeable future, and that makes me immensely happy.
Yes, and it's true. We, and I should mention, we're a membership library founded in 1835, and we've been at the same address since 1840. This building that I'm sitting in right now, we've been in since 1904. So really, we're not going anywhere. We're one of the oldest institutions in the city, and we're and everyone's welcome, I should say. Even if you're far away, we have tons of virtual events. You can email me directly. Ro, do you mind if I share my email? Thank you. I'll share it in the chat in just a second. But if you'd like to know more about the library or the Poet Laureate program, I'll put my email address and our website in the
I know
chat.
that the library looks beautiful from this background, but I promise you that it does not make it justice. That place is gorgeous.
It's pretty special. When I was thinking about blessings hidden in plain sight, I notice them every day here. The way the light plays through the windows and the fixtures and happening upon different books on the shelves and all sorts of stuff. It's a great gift and a blessing to be here every day and to be able to be a part of this. Pretty extraordinary. So thanks, everybody.
Beautiful, beautiful. It is a truly gorgeous place. So we're going to get all of us together one of these days, even from Hungary. We'll get you all here, or just come and move here. That would be actually easier for all of us. So Manuel is going to read us out in a second. But just a couple reminders. Also, Amy, just share with Ro in an email, and she can share with all of us the link to get Manuel's book, how to connect with Troy at the Hive, more about the Mercantile Library. So we'll follow up with that. It will also give you a way to send your poem that you wrote and perhaps didn't get time to read today. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat. Sarah just got Manuel's book. I'm very excited about that. Send us your poem so we can include it in the blog link. And then we will again be doing a book of our time together. And my goodness, is that going to be one fantastic book of poems, because the poems that I've heard this month have just blown me away. And I see a lot of nods on this too. So I think that's it. Next time we have Eddie and Sarah joining us for our final Mindful Poetry Month session, not our final session. And we'll talk more about what happens after that. So thank you, thank you. Beautiful Troy, beautiful Manuel, but also to the rest of you. My God, those were amazing poems that you shared. So we'll have Manuel read us out.
That is something that I love. I have to say that I love the English language, because since it's not my first language, I always notice these things, and particularly this one, how any verb can work in any way. She just said to read us out. Like in the song of Leonard Cohen, where he says, dance me to the end of love, like this dance me to the end is untranslatable. You cannot say that in different languages, and it's not natural. But in English, it's so plastic. So, a blessing. Just off the highway to Rochester, Minnesota, twilight bounds softly forth on the grass, and the eyes of those two Indian ponies darken with kindness. They have come gladly out of the willows to welcome my friend and me. We step over the barbed wire into the pasture where they have been grazing all day, alone. They ripple tensely. They can hardly contain their happiness that we have come. They bow shyly as wet swans. They love each other. There is no loneliness like theirs. At home once more, they begin munching the young turfs of spring in the darkness. I would like to hold the slender one in my arms, for she has walked over to me and nuzzled my left hand. She's black and white. Her mane falls wild on her forehead, and the light breeze moves me to caress her long ear that is delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. Suddenly, I realize that if I step out of my body, I would break into blossom. Thank you all.
None of us want to leave, guys. I can feel it. So we'll have to bow and slowly back out of our ashram of beauty and poetry. We will see you all next week. Much love.
Bye, everybody. Bye. Include me in the follow-up email, please.